Welcome, investors. The Fed is winning the fight against inflation. Data released shows inflation falling for the first time since 2020. Leaked information from the President Xi of China and President Biden reveals President Xi says China will reunify with Taiwan. Hopefully not by force. So what does that mean? What is the possible timeline? And what does this mean for your money? Let's find out. But before we do, if you find value from this video, be sure to like the video and subscribe to our channel so you can stay ahead of the curve with our weekly market videos. I'm your investment advisor representative, Jake Ackerman. Let's dive into it. So we had some data released this week showing that inflation is indeed declining for the first time. So PCE, which is the personal consumer expenditures, which the Fed likes to highlight, falls for the first time since 2020. So PCE dipped 0.1% last month, the government said Friday. And then core PCE, which excludes food and energy, rose 0.1%. So inflation is on the decline, folks. The Fed is winning. U.S. new home sales plunge in November, just stating that the housing market is continuing to slow down. Sales are not taking place. New residential sales for the second month in a row. Consumer spending slows again in November. As we can see, the interest rate hikes, which is designed to defeat inflation, to bring down inflation to a 2% annualized rate, which is the Fed's objective and their target for inflation, is coming down. It's getting closer to their target range. And the unfortunate consequence when the Fed goes to hike interest rate is the economy slows down. The housing market slows down. The consumer spending slows down because gaining credit becomes more difficult because interest rates are higher for your credit cards. The prices of everything have went up. When that happens, consumer savings goes away. They have to put more money on their credit cards. When interest rates go up, the cost to service the credit card debt goes up. Therefore, consumers can't spend as much. That's why we're seeing less real estate transactions taking place. People don't have the money to put down. They can't afford the interest rates. Folks can't afford to spend on your Christmas products, your Hanukkah products, your holiday products. That's the consequences of, fortunately, to bring inflation down. The Fed had to hike interest rates in order to defeat inflation, but for the greater good over time. We may go through a tough period, but inflation should indeed come down. However, we need to move on to the next phase of this video and talk about the President Xi of China and the President Biden's meeting in San Francisco, their summit, which was supposed to be to rebuild the relationship. But from leaked information, let me show you this article by NBC. Xi warned Biden during the summit that Beijing will reunify Taiwan with China. And again, hopefully that doesn't take place by force, but they're willing to do it if it comes to that, which I don't think Taiwan's just going to roll over. However, they do have elections in January, and maybe that changes the dynamics. Maybe the party that gets put in charge is a reunifying party that wants to come back to China, wants to be a part of China. That's always a possibility, right? But likely, China is going to invade Taiwan and look to make it a part of mainland again. So at the beginning, that's what I meant by the reunification. It means an invasion. It means we are going to reunify, likely by force, and again, unless the elections signify another dynamic to that. So when does the timeline? From the U.S. standpoint and the intelligence agency, they were expecting 2025, 2027. And then during that summit, Xi said, we don't have a timeline on that. Of course, they're not going to reveal the timeline to the U.S. officials of when they're going to try to take over Taiwan and either invasion or by reunification. So when is the perfect time to do this for China? It's to do it when the Western countries are weak. And if we're going into this slowdown, that shows that the U.S. is weak. European countries are already in a major slowdown. So the U.S. is slowly following behind the European countries. So that would be a good time for China to try to take over Taiwan. Also, we're fighting a couple war fronts right now. You have the Russia-Ukraine conflict. You have the Israel-Palestinian-Iran conflict taking place. So our chips on the board are scattered across right now. Another good reason for them to invade Taiwan sooner rather than later. We have a presidential election next year. Our election times were unfortunately very divided country. We had the COVID in 2020, an election season, and we couldn't come together. We could not make very good decisions. We were constant fighting and battling and jockeying for political power, both sides of the aisle. Coming up with a compromise solution becomes much more difficult when we have election season and we're politically divided. So you have two things in the corners of, or on the side of sooner rather than later: political election, division, economic slowdowns. So now what does that mean for your money? Well, when they go to invade Taiwan or reunify with Taiwan, especially if it's by force, you better believe that financial sanctions are coming across, probably on a bipartisan basis, and it's going to come swiftly. I mean, they're already preparing a package once this leaked information was revealed to the public. They're preparing a when China invades Taiwan package to fight them on a financial basis and put sanctions across them very quickly. So when that happens, getting goods into our country, because we order a lot of goods from China. I mean, we're the customer of China. Western countries are the customers of China. Getting those goods at a low cost price is going to become more difficult. So the prices, unfortunately, of goods are likely going to go up. The number 2 economy in the world is going to be under sanctions. The cost of things are going to go up. Oil prices easily could go up because they may be harder to get. I mean, we're buying energy, I mean, maybe not directly from China, but it's coming from China because the world shares the supply. You know, we have sanctions against Russian oil. You better believe that Russian oil is likely getting into the United States, into the Western countries that have sanctions against Russia, because we're not buying directly from Russia. We're buying from a country, let's say like Turkey, who's buying it from Russia, or the Western countries are. But it's getting in. So that's going to make things more difficult to bring in crude oil, which the energy prices, if energy prices are going up, the costs of everything go up. So does the Fed do emergency rate cuts to fight this financial war? That's a likely possibility. You see emergency rate cuts because we have to fight a financial battle, and we're going to have to print money. And that's going to cause inflation for a long period of time. We're going to be fighting that inflation fight again 2, 3, maybe 4 years down the road. So we're going to be repeating that cycle, but they are going to do what's necessary to fight that immediate battle, because that's the emergency that's going to be presented right in front of our faces. Or does the realizing that, hey, inflation is going to go up because of the cost of goods, the cost of energy is going to go up, do they keep rates high? And that's going to be a whole different ballgame, because, you know, instead of fighting inflation later, they're going to continue to fight inflation, but it's going to be tough to fight the battle if we're keeping interest rates high, because we're going to have to borrow. So I think the more likely outcome is they do emergency rate cuts, and then we fight the battle of inflation a couple of years down the road. So stick with us. We'll help you navigate through that, and everyone have a great holiday. Expertise you deserve, experience you can count on.